I pulled into the parking garage of Sarah's apartment complex, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I told myself I was overreacting, but my heart wouldn't stop racing. The concrete pillars cast long shadows in the December afternoon light, and somewhere above me, behind one of those identical windows, my daughter wasn't answering her phone. 10 days. 10 days since I'd heard her voice. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, listening to the tick of cooling metal. Through the windshield, I could see the decorated lobby, a massive Christmas tree twinkling with lights, garland wrapped around the marble columns. Sarah loved Christmas. She'd always been the first to put up decorations, to plan Emma's gifts months in advance. That's why when Emma's teacher called me yesterday, voice tight with concern, something cold had settled in my chest. "Mrs. Patterson," she'd said. "Emma's been coming to school in the same clothes for 3 days." And Sarah missed the winter recital. Emma was heartbroken. She kept looking at the door, waiting. Sarah never missed Emma's events. Never. I grabbed my purse and stepped out of the car. My knee protested arthritis flaring up again, but I barely noticed. The elevator ride to the 8th floor felt endless. I'd texted Sarah dozens of times over the past week and a half, called her cell, her work number. Nothing. Her coworker said she'd taken personal leave. Her best friend Monica hadn't heard from her either. But Richard, her boyfriend of 6 months, kept insisting everything was fine. "She's just dealing with some stress, Margaret," he told me 5 days ago when I'd called his number in desperation. "You know how she gets. She needs space." Except I didn't know how she gets. My daughter didn't shut people out, especially not her own mother, especially not Emma. The hallway on the 8th floor was quiet, carpeted in deep burgundy that muffled my footsteps. I counted the numbers until I reached 814. Sarah's door. I raised my hand to knock, then paused. Through the wood I could hear a television playing softly. Someone was home. I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Footsteps approached, but they were too heavy to be Sarah's. The peephole darkened. A long pause. "Who is it?" Richard's voice, smooth but with an edge. "It's Margaret, Sarah's mother. I need to see my daughter." Another pause. I heard a lock turn, then another. The door opened just wide enough for Richard to fill the frame. He was tall, well-dressed, even in casual clothes, dark jeans and a button-down shirt. Handsome in that practiced way that had made me uneasy from the first time Sarah introduced us. "Margaret. Hi." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "This isn't really a good time." "Where's Sarah?" "She's resting. She's been under the weather. I told you, she just needs—" "Richard." I kept my voice level, years of teaching middle school giving me the authority to cut through nonsense. Emma's teacher called me. Sarah missed the recital. Emma's been wearing the same clothes for days. Now let me see my daughter. Something flickered across his face. Irritation, maybe calculation. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. "She's really not up for visitors." "I'm not a visitor. I'm her mother." We stood there in the doorway, and I felt it then, that teacher's instinct I'd honed over 30 years of reading adolescent faces. He was hiding something. The apartment behind him was too quiet, too still. "Where's Emma?" I asked suddenly. "She's here. She's fine. Watching TV." "I'd like to see her." His jaw tightened. "Look, Margaret, I appreciate your concern, but Sarah asked not to be disturbed. She's been having some mental health issues, stress from work. She needs rest and quiet." Mental health issues. Sarah had been to therapy before, after her divorce 3 years ago. She'd been open about it, worked through it. She would have told me if something was wrong again. "Richard, either you let me in or I'm calling the police for a wellness check." His eyes went cold. For a moment, I thought he might close the door in my face. Then I heard a small voice from inside the apartment. "Grandma?" "Emma." My heart squeezed. Richard's expression shifted. He stepped back reluctantly, opening the door wider. "Fine. 10 minutes." I walked past him into the apartment. The living room was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon Sunday. Emma sat on the couch in front of the TV, but she wasn't watching it. She was staring at me with those big brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and she looked so small in her rumpled pajamas. I crossed to her quickly, ignoring the sharp look Richard gave me. "Sweetheart." I knelt down despite my protesting knee, reaching for her hand. It was cold. "Hi, Grandma," she whispered. "Are you okay, baby?" She glanced past me at Richard. then nodded, but her hand gripped mine tighter. "Where's your mama?" Emma's voice dropped even lower. "She's sleeping. Can I go see her?" Emma's eyes went to the closed door of the master bedroom, then to Richard again. Fear. That's what I saw in her face. Pure fear. "Sarah doesn't want to be disturbed," Richard said from behind me, closer than I'd expected. "She's been sleeping a lot. The doctor prescribed something for her anxiety." I stood up slowly, every instinct screaming at me. The apartment smelled wrong, not dirty, but closed up, stale, like windows that hadn't been opened in days. And there was something else underneath it, something sweet and sickly that made my stomach turn. "What doctor?" "Her psychiatrist." "Doctor Chen?" "Sarah's been seeing Dr. Chen for 3 years. She would have told me if—" "A new one. More specialized." I looked around the apartment more carefully now. Sarah's laptop was closed on the dining table, a layer of dust on it. The kitchen was clean but unused, no dishes in the sink, no coffee maker on the counter. The calendar on the wall still showed November. "Richard, I'm going to check on Sarah." "No." His voice went hard. "I told you she doesn't want." I started toward the bedroom door. He grabbed my arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "Margaret, don't." I turned to face him, and in that moment, looking into his eyes, I knew. I didn't know what, exactly, but I knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. "Let go of me." "Grandma?" Emma's voice was tiny, frightened. Richard's fingers loosened. He forced another smile. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Look, why don't you take Emma out for ice cream or something? Let Sarah rest. I'll have her call you when she wakes up." "When did you last see her?" "Sarah. When did you last see her awake?" He hesitated just a beat too long. "This morning." "Liar." I pulled my phone from my purse. "I'm calling the police." "There's no need for that. You're overreacting. Sarah's just—" "Emma," I said, keeping my eyes on Richard. "Come here, sweetheart." She slid off the couch and ran to me, wrapping her arms around my legs. I could feel her trembling. "Everything's going to be okay," I told her, though my own hands were shaking as I dialed 911. Richard watched me, his face unreadable now. He didn't try to stop me. He just stood there, and that frightened me more than anything else. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I'm at my daughter's apartment. She hasn't answered calls or messages in 10 days. Her boyfriend is here, but she's supposedly sleeping and he won't let me see her. Something's wrong. I need—" A sound from the bedroom, muffled, barely audible, not a voice, more like a thump, like something falling. Emma buried her face against my side. "Did you hear that?" I said into the phone. "Ma'am, what's the address?" I gave it to them, my voice steadier than I felt. Richard hadn't moved. He was looking at the bedroom door now, his expression blank. "Stay on the line, ma'am. Officers are en route." "Richard," I said quietly, "what did you do?" He looked at me then, and for just a moment his mask slipped. I saw rage there, and something else. Desperation. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he said. "She was supposed to just— It was supposed to be easy." The floor seemed to tilt under me. "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He walked to the couch and sat down, putting his head in his hands. Emma whispered something against my shirt. I bent down to hear her. "Mommy's in the closet." My blood went cold. "What, sweetheart?" "In the big closet. In her bedroom. Uncle Richard said she's sleeping in there and we can't wake her. He said if I'm good and quiet, she'll wake up soon. But it's been so many days, Grandma. It's been so many days." I heard sirens in the distance, growing closer. Richard heard them too. He stood up. "I need you to know," he said, looking at me. "I didn't want to hurt her, but she found out. About Linda. About the debts. She was going to leave, take Emma, and I'd already put everything in motion. The paperwork, the beneficiary forms. Michael said we just had to wait it out, make it look like—" "Stop talking," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "Stop talking right now." But he kept going, words spilling out like he'd been holding them in for too long. "The life insurance was supposed to solve everything. $500,000. We got married at City Hall 3 weeks ago. She didn't even know. I had someone forge her signature. And then Michael, he said it would be quick, painless, but she fought back and—" The sirens were right outside now. I pulled Emma closer, covering her ears, but I knew she'd already heard too much, known too much. The door burst open. Police officers, 3 of them, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. Richard raised his hands slowly. He looked almost relieved. The bedroom, I said, my voice breaking. The master bedroom closet. My daughter, please. One officer stayed with Richard while the other two went to the bedroom. I held Emma tight, turning her face away, but I couldn't look away myself. I watched them open the door, disappear inside. Heard them calling to each other. Then, "We need paramedics. Now!" Time fractured. One of the officers led Richard out in handcuffs. He didn't resist. Another knelt in front of me and Emma, speaking in a gentle voice, asking questions I couldn't process. More sirens. More people. Someone tried to take Emma from me, but she wouldn't let go, and neither would I. A detective arrived, older, kind-eyed. She sat down on the couch beside us. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm Detective Ruiz. Can you tell me what happened?" I told her everything, my voice mechanical. The days of calls, the conversation with Emma's teacher, Richard's refusal to let me see Sarah, Emma's words about the closet. "Emma," Detective Ruiz said softly, crouching down to the little girl's level, "you've been so brave. Can I ask you some questions? Your grandma will be right here with you." Emma nodded against my side. "When did you last see your mom?" "A long time ago. Lots of days. She and Uncle Richard were fighting, yelling. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard them. Mommy said she found papers. She said Uncle Richard lied to her. He said bad words. Then there was a crash and Mommy screamed, and another man was there too, a mean man with a scar. And I heard more crashing and then nothing. And Uncle Richard found me in the hallway, and he said Mommy was sick, that she needed to sleep in the closet where it's dark and quiet. He said if I was good and didn't tell anyone, she'd get better." My arms tightened around her. Detective Ruiz's expression stayed calm, but I saw her hand clench. "This other man, with the scar. Did you see him again?" Emma nodded. "He came back 2 times. He and Uncle Richard talked in the kitchen. They said they had to wait, that if they waited long enough, everyone would think Mommy just left. Paramedics came out of the bedroom. I saw their faces and knew before anyone said anything. The lead paramedic shook her head at Detective Ruiz. Sarah was gone. My beautiful girl, my daughter who used to dance around the house singing off-key, who'd graduated top of her class, who'd been the best mother to Emma. Gone." The detective was asking more questions, but I couldn't hear them through the roaring in my ears. Emma was crying now, great heaving sobs, and I held her and rocked her and felt my own tears falling into her hair. Later hours, maybe I learned the rest. Richard had met Sarah on a dating app 6 months ago, swept her off her feet. What she didn't know was that he was already married, living a double life in another state. Michael, the man with the scar, was Richard's college friend, now a small-time criminal drowning in gambling debts. Together, they'd hatched a plan. Richard would marry Sarah, make himself beneficiary of her life insurance, arrange an accident, split the money. But Richard had gotten impatient, or desperate. He'd forged documents, filed a marriage license without Sarah's knowledge, and changed her beneficiary designation using contacts at the insurance company contacts Michael had provided. When Sarah discovered the forged papers 2 weeks ago, she'd confronted Richard. They'd argued. It escalated. Michael was there, had been staying at the apartment helping Richard execute the plan. In the struggle, Sarah hit her head. Hard. Instead of calling for help, they'd panicked, made it worse. And then, trying to cover their tracks, they'd locked her body in the closet, kept Emma quiet with threats and promises, and waited. Waited for enough time to pass that they could claim she'd left voluntarily, file for a death certificate eventually, claim the insurance. Emma had been living in that apartment with her mother's body just feet away for 10 days. 10 days of Richard pretending everything was normal, feeding her cereal, making her watch TV quietly, telling her Mommy would wake up soon. The trial was 8 months later. I'd hired the best trauma therapist in the city for Emma, Dr. Pasovitz Quarters, Dr. Pasitit in the Pateranteminis. Sarah Park specialized in childhood PTSD, and she worked with us 3 times a week. We'd moved into a new house, couldn't stay in mine, too many memories of Sarah visiting, and certainly couldn't stay in that apartment. The prosecutor had been adamant that Emma wouldn't have to testify publicly. She gave her statement via video link in the judge's private chambers, with Dr. Park present, and I held her hand the entire time. She was 7 now, a little older, a little more withdrawn than she'd been before. But she was so brave. Richard's wife Linda testified too. She'd had no idea about his double life, his debts, his scheme. She was a victim too, in her own way. The evidence was overwhelming. Richard's forged documents, the marriage license with Sarah's forged signature, security footage from the apartment building showing no sign of Sarah leaving. Emma's iPad had accidentally recorded part of the argument. Emma had been using a drawing app, left it on, and the voice memo function captured Richard shouting about money, Sarah crying. The sound of the struggle. Michael cut a deal and testified against Richard, admitted everything: the plan, the cover-up, his role. He'd only been in it for the money to pay off his gambling debts. 25 years, the prosecutor told me. Michael would serve 25 years. Richard got life without parole. When the verdict was read, he didn't react, just stared straight ahead, that blank expression back on his face. I did take Emma to the sentencing. Dr. Park thought it might help with closure, not the trial itself, but seeing him held accountable. Emma sat between Dr. Park and me in the courtroom, and when the judge said the words, "life in prison," she squeezed my hand. "He can't hurt anyone else?" she whispered. "No, sweetheart, he can't." That night, back at our house, I tucked Emma into bed. Her new room was painted lavender, her choice. Photos of Sarah covered one wall, happy memories. We'd worked with Dr. Park on this, creating a space where Emma could remember her mother without fear. "Grandma?" Emma's voice was small in the dark. "Yes, baby? Do you think Mommy knows that we got him?" I sat on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair. "I think she knows, and I think she's proud of you. I miss her. I miss her too. Every single day. Will it always hurt this much?" I thought about that, about the grief that lived in my chest like a stone. "The hurt changes," I said finally. "It doesn't go away, but it gets different. We learn to carry it. And we remember the good things too. All the love." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can we make Christmas cookies tomorrow? The kind Mommy always made?" My eyes burned with tears, but I smiled. "Of course we can." She fell asleep eventually, and I stayed there beside her bed, watching her breathe. This small, resilient person who'd survived something no child should survive. My job now was to help her heal, to give her the childhood Sarah would have wanted her to have. Downstairs, I made myself tea and stood at the kitchen window. Snow was falling, soft and silent, blanketing the backyard. The Christmas tree we decorated together last weekend glowed in the living room, visible in the reflection of the window glass. I thought about Sarah, about the moment I'd known something was wrong, that teacher's instinct that had sent me to her apartment. What if I'd called the police sooner? What if I'd pushed harder days earlier? But Dr. Park had helped me with that too, in my own therapy sessions. "You can't carry that what if," she'd said gently. "You did what any mother would do. You trusted your instincts. You saved Emma. That matters." It did matter. Emma was here, safe, starting to heal. We had each other. I took a sip of tea and looked at my reflection in the window. I was 68 years old. I'd retired from teaching, expecting to travel, take up gardening, be the fun grandmother who visited on weekends. Instead, I was raising a 7-year-old, navigating therapy and school meetings and nightmares. But I'd do it all over again. For Sarah. For Emma. My phone buzzed. A text from Monica, Sarah's best friend, who called every few days to check on us. "Thinking of you both. How's Emma doing?" I texted back. "Better. We're making Christmas cookies tomorrow." "Sarah's recipe?" "Yes." "She's smiling up there. I know it." I looked up at the dark sky, at the snow still falling, and whispered, "I promise you, Sarah, I'll protect her. I'll give her all the love you would have given her. She'll know how much you loved her. Every single day, I'll make sure she knows." The house was quiet around me. The heat clicked on, warm air rustling through the vents. Emma's nightlight glowed at the top of the stairs. In the morning, we'd make cookies. We'd put on Christmas music. We'd remember Sarah in the 1,000 small ways that made up a life. The grief would always be there, but so would the love. And maybe that's what healing was: not the absence of pain, but learning to hold the pain and the love together, making space for both. I finished my tea and went upstairs. Checked on Emma one more time, still sleeping peacefully, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. I pulled her blanket up a little higher, kissed her forehead. "Good night, sweet girl," I whispered. "You're safe. I've got you." In my own room, I took out my journal. Dr. Park had suggested I write down my feelings, a way to process everything. I'd filled 3 notebooks since that day in Sarah's apartment. I wrote about today, about Emma's bravery in the courtroom, about the relief of seeing Richard sentenced, about the ache that never quite left my chest, the way I sometimes forgot Sarah was gone and reached for my phone to call her. And I wrote about hope, because despite everything, despite the horror and the grief and the impossibility of it all, there was still hope. In Emma's laughter when we baked together, in the progress Dr. Park said she was making, in the small, ordinary moments of our new life. I'd told Emma the hurt would change, but I was still learning that myself. Some days were better than others. Some days I could think about Sarah without breaking down. Other days the weight of it pressed so hard I could barely breathe. But I was here, Emma was here. We were surviving, and slowly, so slowly, beginning to live again. I closed the journal and turned off the light. In the darkness, I could hear the house settling around me, Emma breathing softly down the hall. Tomorrow we'd make cookies. Next week was Emma's winter concert. She'd been practicing her solo with the school music teacher. In January, we'd start planning her 8th birthday party. Life went on. It had to. Not because the pain stopped, but because Emma deserved a future, deserved joy, deserved to be more than the trauma that had tried to break her. And Sarah, my beautiful, vibrant Sarah, would want that too. Would want us to live fully, to honor her memory, not with endless grief, but with love and laughter, and the small rebellions of happiness against sorrow. I closed my eyes and let sleep pull me under, dreaming of Christmas cookies and my daughter's smile, and the sound of Emma's voice calling me Grandma, and the slow, painful, necessary work of healing that would carry us forward into whatever came next. Because that's what we did. We survived. We loved. We kept going. For Sarah, for Emma, for ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.